everybody. Since church was canceled, I was asked to share a little something with you all. So a few months ago, we decided that it was safe to begin having Sunday school again. And the only problem was that William was teaching the confirmation classes, and that meant that we would need someone to teach the youth class. So as a temporary solution, Sandra, Beck, and I agreed that we would teach the youth Sunday school class. So I decided that I would do the first month and Sandra would do the next month. So I needed some materials, and luckily we had some resources that had been ordered prior to COVID, and there was a book intended for upper elementary that I decided I could probably modify and make work for the youth. So the first 4 lessons were on the 10 Commandments, and so I was happy about that because that's something that I felt like I knew well. So the first commandment was putting God first. And it didn't take me very long at all to realize that I knew very little about this commandment. And so I went onto YouTube and began watching videos to get a better understanding of this commandment so I could teach it to the youth. So then the next Sunday, we have the lesson to remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. And of course the same thing happened. I thought I understood this commandment. I knew growing up that you went to church on Sunday and you did not work, and you definitely did not mow your yard on a Sunday. So when I began preparing the lesson, I realized that was kind of, in general, all I really knew about it. So I began researching it so that I could teach it. And again, I was watching YouTube to get this understanding. So a couple of things. One is just to understand what the Sabbath actually means. So according to the Webster Dictionary, a Sabbath is a seventh day of the week intended for rest and worship. And then a second definition is just specifically a time of rest. So as I was watching these different preachers on YouTube, I really was wishing that I had understood this commandment better when many years ago. So the interesting thing about this commandment is God has instructed us how important it is that we rest. And so the thing is, this is so obvious. Like we know this. We can look at a little child and we can tell when they need a nap. And as a parent, we tell our children to go to bed. Like, we understand that they need to get their rest. And at a certain point, we start realizing ourselves that when we don't get rest, that we don't do well. We might be very irritable. We might feel sad, feel very anxious. And in addition to that, when we're around other people that need to get rest, we know that as well, because we're on the receiving end of their lack of rest. And so God knew how important it was for us mentally and physically to get rest. Just like as a parent, we know that for our child, and just as we ourselves know that when we are deprived of rest, how it begins to affect us. And so God knew it was so important for our well-being that he made it one of the commandments. So the thing, though, is that he told us that we needed to remember it. And to remember it means that we need to prepare for it. So if a Sabbath is the seventh day, that means that according to the Bible and what God has told us, that for 6 days we need to work so that we can rest on that seventh day. So this day and age, though, that is so hard because there are so many things going on that we might have good intentions behind doing this, but it becomes very hard for us to do. So we actually know how to do this, though, better than we realize. So when I was teaching the adult class, this was right around Christmas. And if we think about the Sabbath in the sense of Christmas, so God told us to remember it and to keep it holy. So let's take Christmas. So we know Christmas is coming. We're remembering that it's coming. We're preparing for it. We arrange things with our families and friends. We set aside a certain time that we're going to celebrate. We plan a meal. Maybe we're buying gifts. Maybe we have a certain outfit that we're planning to wear. But we are preparing for it. We know it's coming. We're remembering that it's coming. And as a result, we are preparing for it. So then, just like Christmas, what day is your Sabbath doesn't have to be Sunday. It might be another day of the week. So for some families, they celebrate on Christmas Day, which is December 25th. But for a lot of families, they celebrate on other days for Christmas. But that doesn't make it less special. So your Sabbath doesn't have to be Sunday. It might be another day of the week that works for you. And it might be that all throughout the months that your Sabbath is changing to different days. So it doesn't have to be Sunday, but it does need to be a day. It needs to be a day that we are remembering to prepare for. So just like with Christmas, it doesn't have to be Sunday, but it does need to be prepared for. And not only does it need to be prepared for, but when that day comes, it needs to be special. God gave it to us as a gift. So this was meant to be a day to not just rest, but to also worship. And in this, it's not just taking care of us mentally and physically, but also spiritually. And the impact that it can have, if you go back to Christmas, that's one of the most special time of the years for a lot of families. It's one of the time, for some families, it's the only time they see certain family members. But it's a special time. Like when you're with your family, it's just special. Knowing that it's coming feels special, and it just makes you feel happy. And the time that you're with your family, it just feels different. We talk about the Christmas spirit. And so when it comes to the Sabbath, your Sabbath day should be very special. And the things that we do on that day should feel very special. So some of the interesting things that I heard on YouTube, we're talking about what is special to you, like what would be holy to you. So for a lot of us, we begin by going to church on the Sabbath, or on Sundays, or whatever day our Sabbath is, we might go to church, or maybe we are doing our own spiritual thing. Maybe we're doing a Bible study, or whatever that is for you personally. But on that day, we're told that it should be a day of rest. So then we need to distinguish between what is rest and what is work. Well, if it's something that you enjoy, then I hope you enjoy your work. But let me back up just a second. At a certain age, I think you very clearly understand the difference between what is work and what is not work. So if I'm doing the things that I have to do on a regular basis, I'm a teacher. So that becomes pretty clear. Even if I'm not at school, there are things that I have to do to prepare for school, and that is work. And then when I come home, there are things that I need to do at home that are maintaining the home, that is work. So when I am going to rest on my seventh day, I need to go ahead and get all that work completed or taken care of in my 6 days so that I can take off that seventh day. So then what is okay to do on that seventh day? Well, it just needs to be special. It needs to be things that you are treating yourself to that day because it's special. So maybe for you it's being outside. Maybe it's for once in the week for you to finally get a chance to lay down on the couch and have to do nothing. So in Sunday school, one thing that came up, and I won't call names, but it was mentioned about how much enjoyment you can get from even being outside, doing even yard work. But if it's something special to you, that's what you're really enjoying doing, then that can be a very special time that you've set aside so that you can be outside doing those things. So the thing is, especially as an adult, I think that we feel like we don't have time to take a day off. We've got too much to do. So I work during the week. I've got my weekend to get the things done around the house. I don't have time to not work on Sunday. Well, one of the most interesting things that I heard in watching these different sermons on this was that when we think we can't do it, we're lacking in our trust in God. We feel like we can't afford to put what's going on in this world on hold and devote that day to God. That in itself had such an impact on me, because if we're preparing for it, we should be okay. But in addition to that, we should trust that if God told us we needed to rest, that He's going to take care of us if we rest. Now, He didn't say, just don't do anything and I'll take care of you. He did tell us to prepare for it. But if we're following this commandment, and we're preparing for it. And then we take that Sabbath day to rest and to worship and to work on our spiritual relationship with God and treat it special for what it is because God told us it was special, then it's going to have an amazing impact on our life. For one thing, we're going to get the rest that we need. But in addition to that, what we're doing on that Sabbath day is going to have such an impact. For some of us, it's going to be giving us special time with our families, special time with our spouses, with our friends, and for some of us, a devoted time to God that we haven't been giving. So I would encourage you to think about the fourth commandment. And are we actually doing that in our lives? Are we preparing for it? And are we resting? And are we treating that day for the holiness that it deserves? I want to say one last little thing. This is the hardest thing I've ever been asked to do. And it is embarrassing how many times I've tried recording this. But I'm telling you this for a reason. I have been asked to do so many things that I felt totally underqualified for. And one of the very first things I can remember this being related to is when I was asked to direct Bible school. And honestly, I was embarrassed because I'd never even volunteered to help with our Bible school. And so I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't even know where to begin to possibly direct it. But the problem was I couldn't think of any good reason to not be willing to do it. And by directing Bible school, I was absolutely dependent on the people in this church to help me out. And I have never, when you get involved in the church, it is unbelievable what starts happening in your life. And for one thing, that's when you really see how wonderful the people in this church really are. Because I did not feel qualified to direct Bible school. Yet, miraculous things began to happen. And just one person after another volunteering and helping me out. I really didn't do anything but delegate everything. And so, get involved in the church. It is unbelievable the family that is here and the impact that that can have on your life when you start getting involved. When I did Bible school that summer, that was also the same summer that I found out we were doing a mission trip. Now, I don't know how I was so far removed that I didn't even realize we were doing a mission trip. By chance mentioned that I would enjoy chaperoning a mission trip. And then within the next week, I was on the mission trip because there was a need of a chaperone. And all of this was so life-changing for me. And it all began when someone asked me to help with the church. And I really couldn't think of a good excuse to say no. So I tell you this to say, get involved. If you don't feel like you can do it well, and for that reason you shouldn't, let me tell you, that's when miraculous things happen. So, thank you for listening to all this. If you are still watching this video, thank you so much. I wish so badly that I could speak eloquently to you all and have a very nice laid out lesson to share with you. But this is what I've got. This is all I've got to give. And this church is a beautiful church. This family, the family in this church is unreal. And if you feel like you're not getting what you need out of church, do make sure that you're actually doing your part as well. It's hard to really enjoy something if you're not involved. And just coming to church on Sundays is a wonderful, wonderful thing. But when you dive into it a little bit more, it is just the most spiritual thing I've ever experienced in my life. So thank you all to everybody in this church that has had my back all these years. And with that, I'm going to close in a very, very short prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for this day and all your many, many blessings. In your wonderful and precious name we pray. Amen.